In 1974, TSR published and released the first official copy of Dungeons & Dragons, a mystical fantasy realm where being anything you want to be was the whole point of the game. In the original version of the game, there were 3 classes to choose from. Cleric, a mix of magic and melee fighting styles for a rounded experience. A magic user, which focused on staying towards the back and casting spells for massive damage. And the fighting man? Yeah, this really was the Wild West of role-playing games, so they didn't have a whole lot to work off of. But over the years, as the classes and races of D&D became more and more developed and complex, along came, BAM! The fighter. Take off the man, take off the thing, slap on an ER, and you've got the fighter. When looking at the fighter, we see a few noticeable changes from the fighting man of olden times. First off, the fighter can now be a lady. Second off, when you played as the fighting man, you were a big, meaty bag of hit points. So, you would be in front of the other players so they wouldn't be immediately mauled by whatever unbalanced monster was thrown at them. Nowadays, the fighter can be a big bag of hit points, an archer, a rapier-wielding stabby guy, a dude who rides horses, a big boy that uses a katana, or really anything you want within reason. And that leads us to actually get into the nuts and bolts of this class. With these videos, I want you leaving with a solid grasp of the source material, with some extra little tidbits along the way. And with that, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Mike, and here at the Benevolent DM, we are your guide to all things Dungeons & Dragons. Now, I have a couple disclaimers. Number 1, this is by no means all the information on the topic. As much as I want you to sit through hours of me talking about this, I don't. Number 2, this is the information as taken from the 5th edition Player's Handbook. I may add additional pieces from other sources, but I will mainly be sticking to the Player's Handbook. Number 3, third and most important, all the information in this video is subject to change by your DM. Just because I say it here doesn't mean your DM won't change it in their game to spice things up. So don't be a dick and say, well, Mike said this. Don't be that person. And now that that's settled, let's dive right in!
Welcome to the D&D world!
I believe the best start to any character is the backstory, and with the fighter, especially so. You have to determine what makes your character special. Is it what they have already done in their backstory, or what they plan to do in the future? This all helps pave the way for a more robust character and a richer experience. And if you are having trouble coming up with something, talk to your DM. They might have ideas for ways to work you into their narrative, and then you can work off of that. In doing this, it will help develop so many things about your character's gameplay. So looking at your character, you've got the basics. You've got your hit dice, which could vary depending on the amount of meat you're bringing to the table. Then, eventually, we get to your proficiencies, and whoa, Jesus, proficient in all armor and shields? You see what I mean? This is what I'm talking about. You could really make this into whatever the hell you want it to be. If you want to be a big boy or a quick, fast boy, it's up to you. And with simple and martial weapons at your disposal, there's nothing stopping you. So now that we've taken care of that, it's time to hit the open road of adventure, right?
Wrong!
We have to go over the different fighting styles you can choose from first. There are a few options available to you immediately, but mainly they're just to help you be better at what you already want to be. Then you get a couple other things that don't really matter a whole lot, just a little Healy boy, an extra action or whatever, and then wow, level 3! And this is when it really gets interesting. Hell, whenever I start a campaign for my players, I almost always start them at level 3. It makes it spicier. At this point, you have 3 paths to choose from. The Champion, the Battlemaster, and the Eldritch Knight. And a bunch of other bullshit later on in other publications. But these are fucking rad! I know it's kind of a lame thought, but the original subclasses of Fighter in 5th edition kick ass. You can do so much with them. The Champion focuses on raw power to slay the toughest of foes. The Battlemaster focuses on these things called maneuvers, which we'll get into here in a second. Then the Eldritch Knight, a warrior with a little bit of Disney magic in him. Now, going through each of them, the Champion is pretty basic. You can take more hits and do more crits. That's it. For the Battlemaster, I feel the Player's Handbook does it justice. Those who emulate the archetypal Battlemaster employ martial techniques passed down through generations. To a Battlemaster, combat is an academic field, sometimes including subjects beyond battle such as weaponsmithing and calligraphy. Not every fighter absorbs the lessons of history, theory, and artistry that are reflected in the Battlemaster archetype. But those who do are well-rounded fighters of great skill and knowledge. Alright, so if you choose this, you're essentially the Dos Equis guy at killing stuff. In this archetype, you have something called maneuvers, which enhance your moves and change the way that your character plays. For instance, you are an archer, traveling along with your companions, a wizard and a barbarian, when suddenly the party is attacked by goblins. During the fight, everything is going great, but then you see the barbarian is getting surrounded. You can use something called a superiority die on a commander's strike maneuver, and the barbarian can attack in your place. You start with a total of 4 superiority dice, which increases later in the levels. You use these to fuel your maneuvers in combat. And there's a whole list of maneuvers, but that's all for another video. And finally, we have the Eldritch Knight. Essentially what the Eldritch Knight is if you took a knight and stuffed a little wizard in him. They can learn from the wizard's spell list all the way up to 4th level spells. Spell casting, however, is still based on intelligence, so make sure you don't have a brick of a man running around trying to cast sticks to snakes.
Sticks to snakes.
And that really covers it. Since the fighter is seen as one of the more basic classes, it doesn't get much more wild from there. And now you can go out and make your fighter into the hero they were always meant to be. Or not. Whatever. I'm not your dad.